I'm Mihir Bhatlawande, and today I'll be talking about why I chase problems. I'll be starting with my story, then a problem that puzzles me, and finally an example of a person who chased his problem. If I had an hour to solve a problem, I'd spend 55 minutes thinking about the problem and 5 minutes thinking about solutions. When Einstein said this, he did not mean with certainty that he would solve the problem, but instead that he would have a fruitful result. Thinking about problems is more rewarding than any solution, and it is the big problems that I chase. So naturally, the love of my life is physics. People believe that physics teaches you why the apple falls to the ground, but I believe physics teaches you what it's like to fall on your face repeatedly. But that's what problems do. They give you a chance to stand back up again. This brings me to the problem that I think of before sleeping and on waking up. This problem arises when one tries to combine the two pillars of physics, quantum mechanics and general relativity. These two giants simply cannot work together. Let me break it down without going into unnecessary detail. Albert Einstein came up with his theory of general relativity in 1915, a time when physics was changing every single day. General relativity is the theory of the very massive, galaxies, black holes, neutron stars. It tells us how space-time affects matter and energy, and how matter and energy affect space-time. In simpler words, it's our best theory of gravity. Around the same time, the world of physics was shrinking to quantum scales. Quantum mechanics is the theory of the smallest particles, neutrinos, electrons, quarks. It's the most fundamental theory of the universe. Scientists at the time thought that what is seen at the largest of scales must also be true for the smallest, most fundamental ones. And that's where the quest for quantum gravity began. But the problem was, when one tried to reconcile these two, infinities arose in the calculations. And in physics, an infinity, or a singularity as it's called, signals an error in the theory. Einstein himself spent his last days trying to reconcile quantum gravity, quantum mechanics and general relativity. And after 100 years, we still have not reached a mutually agreeable conclusion. Valiant efforts have been made, however. Superstring theory, loop quantum gravity and stochastic gravity are our top contenders. I don't agree with any of those. String theory necessitates the need for 10 or more dimensions of space. It's not testable by the technology present today or in the foreseeable future. What's the problem? The problem is that we're choosing to chase solutions rather than focusing on the problem. Quantum mechanics is flawed. Measuring of the quantum state is a key principle, yet the measurement itself is not defined. The world knows this, but we are choosing to ignore this because it works so far. This brings me to the next part, which is an example of a person who rewrote his life just the way we need to rewrite quantum mechanics. His name is Jeffrey Preston Bezos, and a little known fact is that he started out as a physics student at college. One day he was met with a particularly challenging trigonometry question. He tried it for hours with no luck, and at the end of the third, he decided to consult the smartest guy at Princeton, which was the university he studied at. The guy takes one look at the problem, thinks about it, and says, the answer is cosine. Now, if I was Bezos, I would have started crying on the spot. This guy at a glance solved a problem that Bezos couldn't in hours. He asked the guy, did you just do that in your head? The guy says, of course not. I just solved a similar problem 3 years ago. Now, let me tell you, it's almost impossible to remember a 3-year-old trigonometry problem. And Bezos, upon hearing this, knew that he would never be the best at physics when there were guys like Mr. Cosine. So he decided to drop it. He was defeated by his problem and he had fallen flat on his face. And he was left with a lot of books with no use for them. Deciding to sell them, he created a website. It's now called Amazon, and it made him the richest person on the planet. Long story short, chase problems not because they lead to success, but because they lead to failure. Without failing to derive quantum gravity, we may never have realized that there was a problem with quantum mechanics. And without failing, Jeff Bezos would be a no-name physicist. That's why I do what I do, regardless of how outlandish it may sound to others. Because perhaps the apple was the second best thing to happen to Newton. Thank you.